Welcome back to the Japan FinTech Observer. Get ready for a quick hit of the latest news in Japanese finance and fintech. We're diving into the headlines, breaking down the trends, and leaving you with the insights you need to stay ahead of the curve. Let's go.
In today's episode, we are taking a closer look at the unique crossroads Japan is finding itself at. On one side, Japan faces the most rapidly aging population in the world. On the other, it's navigating the dawn of the artificial intelligence revolution. These two powerful forces, demographics and technology, are converging on its labor market. A new working paper from the International Monetary Fund, titled The Impact of Aging and AI on Japan's Labor Market, dives deep into this issue. It paints a picture not just of challenges, but of unexpected opportunities. So, what did the researchers find? First, let's set the stage. The numbers on Japan's aging are stark. In 2023, nearly 30% of its population was over 65. By 2070, that figure is projected to hit an incredible 40%. This demographic shift isn't a distant problem. Its effects are being felt right now. The most immediate consequence? Severe labor shortages. The IMF report confirms what many in Japan already know. These shortages have intensified over the last decade, reaching record highs in 2024. Sectors like construction, IT, and medical services are feeling the pinch the most. So, the first key finding from the report is a direct, data-backed link. Population aging is a primary driver of Japan's labor shortages and is also weighing on productivity growth. The analysis shows that sectors with a higher share of older workers, or a lower share of younger ones, tend to report significantly worse labor shortages 5 years down the line. It's a structural problem with a built-in time lag. Furthermore, the paper finds that an aging labor force is negatively associated with labor productivity growth. It's not just about fewer workers, it's also about a potential drag on economic dynamism. Now, in a world of labor shortages, you might think artificial intelligence would be the perfect silver bullet. A way to automate tasks, boost productivity, and fill the gaps left by a shrinking workforce. And this leads us to the second, and perhaps most surprising, finding of the report. Japan's workers are actually less exposed to AI than their counterparts in other advanced economies like the US or Germany. This seems counterintuitive, right? A country that pioneered industrial automation is seemingly lagging in the adoption of AI in its workforce. The report suggests this is partly due to the very structure of Japan's labor market, which has a large share of service sector jobs that are for now less susceptible to AI replacement. This creates a paradox. The low exposure to AI means fewer jobs are currently at risk of being displaced by technology. But it also means that AI's potential to alleviate those critical labor shortages is constrained. AI can't fill a gap in a job if it isn't being integrated into that job's tasks. The paper breaks this down further. It identifies which workers are most at risk. Unsurprisingly, clerical and sales workers face high exposure and low complementarity, meaning AI is more likely to replace their tasks than to assist them. Interestingly, the oldest cohort of workers, those 65 and over, are the least exposed to AI, as many are concentrated in personal care and service roles that still require a human touch. So, we have an aging workforce causing labor shortages, and we have AI, a potential solution, but one that isn't being fully leveraged yet. This brings us to the third crucial finding, which is all about the transition. What happens when AI adoption does accelerate? Can a worker whose job is displaced simply move to a new one? The report says, it's not that simple. The third key finding is that there are significant skill distance gaps between jobs, making labor mobility a major challenge. The researchers constructed a skill distance index. Think of it as a measure of how different the skills required for two jobs are. A score of 1 means the jobs have completely different skill sets. And the gaps are huge. For example, the skill distance between a professional role, like an engineer, and a cleaning occupation is 0.99. The knowledge required for a sales job is vastly different from that of a manufacturing worker, with a knowledge distance of 0.8. This means you can't just retrain a factory worker to become a data analyst overnight. The path from a job with high AI exposure, like a clerical role, to a job with low AI exposure, like a protective services worker, is a long and difficult one. The data confirms this. Fewer than 20% of new hires in high AI exposure roles came from low exposure occupations. Workers tend to move between similar types of jobs. So what's the way forward? The report doesn't just diagnose the problems, it points towards solutions, highlighting both Japan's past successes and future needs. First, the paper acknowledges that Japan has done an impressive job of mitigating some demographic pressures. Policies to raise the retirement age and encourage more women and seniors to work have led to some of the highest labor force participation rates for seniors in the OECD. That's a major policy success. However, the report notes a caveat. Many seniors work shorter hours, partly due to pension rules that can discourage higher earnings. But the biggest takeaway is about the future. To truly capitalize on the benefits of AI and manage the disruption, Japan must focus on improving labor mobility. This means breaking down those skill distance barriers. The report concludes that this will require targeted policies, what economists call active labor market policies. In plain English, that means strategic investment in reskilling and upskilling programs. It means education that prepares people for the jobs of tomorrow, and support systems that help workers transition from declining industries to growing ones. Without this focus on mobility, Japan faces a double risk: persistent labor shortages in some sectors, and job displacement without a clear path forward for workers in others. In the end, the IMF's report portrays Japan not as a country in decline, but as a crucial laboratory for the future. Its twin challenges of aging and AI are not unique. They are simply further along than in most other developed nations. The path Japan forges, how it balances the human and technological elements of its economy, how it empowers its workers to adapt, and how it turns the challenge of aging into an opportunity for innovation, will hold valuable lessons for the entire world. That's all the time we have for today on the Japan FinTech Observer. A special thanks to the authors of the IMF working paper. Join us next time as we continue to explore the forces that shape Japanese society, finance, and fintech.